Welcome to Policy Bazaar. I'm Arjun Bhagat. Now, it is that time of the year when we start planning for the much-awaited summer vacations. We take due precautions while booking our flight tickets, the accommodation, the tour packages. But then what about the unforeseen situations or emergencies such as accidents, flight delays, lost baggage, theft, or even hospitalization? Now, do we plan for it as dedicatedly as we do for the other aspects of traveling? Incidentally, the most important factor that we tend to ignore while planning for vacations is travel insurance, unless it is mandatory to opt for that cover. Now, if you're planning a vacation, be it domestic or overseas, it is imperative for you to get a comprehensive coverage, irrespective of whether or not it is compulsory to do so to get that visa. Now, today, we will discuss various aspects of travel insurance. Let's welcome Yashish Dhaya with us, CEO and co-founder of Policy Bazaar, on the show. Thanks for joining us, Yashish. Let me first ask you, has the awareness really increased as far as travel insurance is concerned, given that there have been so many air crashes, disasters in Uttarakhand? What is your take on that?
Awareness of travel insurance has certainly grown. A lot of it is to do with Schengen making it compulsory. A lot of it is to do with there being very high expenses in the US or in many other countries when one falls sick. And it's odd that a plane crash or something, because such a big news, but it's the funniness of mathematics, right? It's basic. It's about 200 people, but if you look at accidents in India, there's an accident every 90 seconds.
Yeah.
But
couple of lakhs get killed every year. So the
point is, while it's a terrible tragedy, when one looks at the mathematics of it, it pales in front of the number of accidents happening on a daily basis.
Precisely. Yeah.
But because it's in the media glare so heavily, I think it impacts people. And yes, it has impacted people. So we see every time there is a plane crash or something of that sort, the purchases of travel insurance suddenly do shoot up. There's no doubt about that.
So it spikes when there is.
It spikes and it stays high for a long time after that. So to a large extent, insurance is driven by the awareness of events happening. The awareness that an event can happen. So it is not that the product is not required. It is that the buyers are not aware that it is required.
But Yashish, the tendency is that, I've taken travel insurance 5 times, a person would say, but I haven't used it. So what's the point? I mean, so does that logic really
lucky,
work?
But it's good that one didn't have the need to use insurance. I think it's a very lucky situation that one didn't have the need. That's like saying, I haven't been to a doctor in the last 10 years. It's great. It's not something one should show off about, but it's great. It's fantastic. It's not a happy experience going to a hospital or a doctor or taking an insurance policy. That only happens when an unfortunate event happens. But at the same time, just because the dice hasn't rolled for the last 10 years, 10 times to a heads, does not mean the chance of it not being heads the next time is any less. It's 50%. The next time you kind of toss the coin, it's 50% heads, 50% tails. That's how probability works.
But yeah, you're right, because that's the same kind of logic that a lot of people use as far as health insurance or other insurance is concerned, that, I'm fit, I'm 25 years old, I'm 30, nothing is going to happen to me. But let's go into the highlights of what a travel insurance plan really gives you. What are the benefits that a person can accrue if something does go wrong?
See, what all can go wrong when you are traveling? The biggest thing that can go wrong is that you can fall sick, and seriously sick. My grandfather fell sick when he was traveling to Florida, and he had to go to the hospital, and the bill was about $10,000 in 1.5 hours. He had a heart issue. He was about 93 at that time. And I think similarly, issues can happen, just like they happen here. Now, the only thing is, medical costs in India are a fraction of the costs that exist in the US. So if you're traveling to the US without travel insurance, you're taking on a massive risk. Europe, it's compulsory to have travel insurance. You cannot travel without travel insurance. And similarly in Asia, if you do travel there and you do fall sick, then you're going to spend the money on your own if you don't have travel insurance. So having travel insurance automatically makes sense. Specifically if there are, if there's a life-threatening disease or something of that sort. Of course, if I fall sick, I may decide not to go to the hospital, but if it's a life-threatening situation, then so that's the biggest piece that it covers. Rest, everything is largely fringe. but it is meant to attract people to the product. So other things are like, you lose your passport, you lose your baggage, you have an accident, which is the same thing as a health thing. There also covers if you miss your flight, if your flight gets delayed by more than 5 hours, all sorts of things. The problem with the human mind in a way is that we are very impacted by high frequency events, but not very impacted by high impact events. So if you lose a passport, that is not actually a high impact event. You can get your passport in about $500, whichever country you are in, and that's pretty much what it will cover. But if you fall sick in the US, you could have thousands of dollars of cost coming on very, very quickly. And it could easily run into $100,000, which could be something which may be higher than your net worth. And so imagine my parents traveling to the US to meet my cousin or something, and suddenly one of them has a heart attack and they don't have any insurance. It's gonna be $100,000, and that'll be a lot of their savings.
Right. And what about risks associated with terrorism and hijacking? Because those are concerns that people do have.
See, if you really look, so yes, you can get coverages that can cover those. Number one, so that's the answer there. But please don't rack your brain about those eventualities. They are very, 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 very rare. They are so rare. You'll be able to kind of, compared to the amount of deaths and disabilities that happen in the world on a regular basis, the impact of terrorism would be not even 0.1%. So yeah, it's a high impact thing and everybody thinks about it and everybody kind of talks about it, but it is negligible. So providing that cover for an insurance company is a negligible cost. And many companies will provide products that have those coverages.
So then what are the kinds of travel insurance? Also, of course, we have a fair bit of idea about international travel insurance, what all that covers. What about domestic? Because now when you're buying a ticket, you get an option, click here for 152 rupees or 200 and you'll get the following benefits if you're taking an airline flight or something like that.
Yeah. The domestic travel insurance is it basically covers you for some amount of losses, etc. during that coverage. It's not really health insurance cover. It's a very minuscule travel insurance cover. It has very low claims ratios. So domestic travel insurance, I think people take it, but it's mostly not very well used. I don't know of anybody who's kind of made a claim on a domestic travel insurance till date. I have not come across anybody who's made a claim on a domestic travel insurance.
So let's go over some of the other ones. International,
so when you look at it,
corporate.
In international travel insurance, you fundamentally have two types of travel insurance. One is a single trip plan and one is a multi-trip plan. So if you're a frequent traveler, instead of having to buy every time, it works out more economical for you to buy a single plan, which would cover up to 90 days or up to 180 days of travel, or up to 45 days of travel, depending on whatever you wish. And the overall cost would be quite minuscule compared to having to take insurance plans every time. Plus, for many people, it's 1,000 rupee purchase. It just takes time. So, they don't want to think too much about it. So that works. So if you're traveling more than twice a year, as a thumb rule, just go for a multi-trip plan. And then there's a single trip plan. Single trip plan essentially covers you for individual trips, one trip at a time. Now, you can obviously, when you're buying travel insurance, you could be traveling for different perspective, for different reasons, and there are different covers for that. So you could be traveling as students, so there's a student cover for that. You could be traveling as a corporate, so there's a corporate cover for that. When employees of a company are traveling, they would be taking a corporate cover. There can be an individual cover, there can be a group cover, there can be a family cover, there can be a senior citizen cover. So senior citizen, student, family, larger group cover when you're traveling as friends, or not just family, but a bit of friends or a group, just on a trip, or there could be a corporate if they're all part of a single organization. But those are types of covers that you can get, and there are certain benefits that come with those, which ease both the policy purchase and its execution.
So let's talk about senior citizens and the kind of travel insurance that is available for them. You talked about your grandfather. Is there a specific plan which is there for them, or do you have to ask for certain features with it?
So see, the fundamental thing we have to understand is travel insurance is essentially, when I say essentially, please don't kind of miss out the other fringes of it, but 80% of the cost of a travel insurance, or maybe even more, maybe 90%, is health insurance. So travel insurance is just a health insurance plan which you are taking for the time when you're going to be traveling. And I think if people understood that way, it will really work. So the moment you become senior, the same complications that apply for senior citizen plans in health insurance apply for senior citizen plans in travel insurance. So what are the issues? You can have a pre-existing disease, or basically you're already suffering from a particular disease. Now, if that disease happens when you're traveling, if there was a standard travel insurance, they essentially will not cover the senior citizen at all. So they just say that, okay, we can't give you travel insurance because that would also include pre-existing diseases. So the senior citizen plans, those will get excluded. There will be, unless it's a life-threatening disease. So you cannot, if you're a heart patient, you cannot go to the US and just undergo some kind of an operation and claim it through your travel insurance policy. That is usually not allowed. Now, you could do it if it's a life-threatening issue. So there's a distinction for senior citizens between life-threatening and non-life-threatening. So if you're not bothered by that event right then, and if you're not, if it's not a life-threatening situation, you're supposed to travel back to the country and get covered by your base health insurance plan, not a travel insurance plan. So that's the broad difference. Of course, there are certain advantages that come with a senior citizen plan. So you will have things like you can call up a helpline 24 hours. You can have some local support. Essentially, all the support that we require for senior citizens does come in. But that's the fundamentally, it's a more limited travel insurance plan, and it will only cover emergencies, not things that you can come back for. Not pre-existing.
Right. What about children? Because a lot of children travel. A lot of young people go for education abroad.
Yeah.
So there's always that interim between the time when they buy that insurance or whatever, they travel and they join the university there.
Yeah. So there is both student travel insurance as well as individual travel insurance for youngsters. And essentially this is the same again as health insurance plan, but you can have it as a standalone. The big difference between this and standard travel insurance, standard travel insurance is for a trip up to 45 days or so. But when you take a student travel insurance, it can be for a period up to 2 years. That means for that long period duration, you're going to be there in that country, and you're covered for, essentially it's a health insurance cover, plus certain personal accident and certain eventualities, as I said, which do get covered by these plans. So let's talk about some of these eventualities also, because they're quite important to people.
Yashish, many manifestations of travel insurance. We've basically focused on the health part of it because that's critical. What other aspects does it cover?
Okay. So suppose you're a student in a particular university, and of course the health is covered. All personal accidents are covered. So any kind of accident that happens, you're covered for that. Any kind of loss of materials, which is basically passport, etc., is covered. Delay in trips are covered. However, because of the disease, a lot of other impacts can happen. Essentially, what if a student gets a disease by which they have to come back to their home country, and hence they miss the entire semester? So the semester's fees can be covered. The parents may have to fly to that country to get the child back. Those fees, those costs can be covered. So on the whole, it can be quite a powerful plan for supporting.
So are those specifics that you have to ask for?
Yes, those are specifics that you have to at times ask for. That
but they're available, you say?
They're available. There are companies which have those products available. And as a rule of thumb, a $50,000 travel insurance, and rule of thumb, will be about 1/5 the price of a $50,000 student travel insurance. Because student travel insurance is for a long period, and the normal travel insurance is for a short period. The other reason for this is, if you buy the same travel insurance from abroad, it will be about 2 to 3 times more expensive than how you can buy it from India. Because the university will request you to have some kind of a health cover or some kind of a insurance cover, and that typically abroad will cost you between 2 to 3. At least when I went abroad, it was costing about 2 to 3 times in France than it costs for me to buy it from India.
Now. Probably
I don't know whether it's more or less, but it'll be higher than what it costs here. So it's would definitely encourage students to buy the student travel insurance from here before they leave, rather than be faced with a bill which is 2-3 times higher when they reach that particular place.
Right, and now viewers' questions. We've got Dia, 27 years old, wants to know if she can have the tenor of her policy extended. What if she had claimed benefit during her trip? Now she'd opted for a 3-month travel plan that is about to expire.
So if nothing has happened, it can be extended. Usually, the travel insurance plan has to be bought before you leave, and it needs to cover the entire duration of the travel. So it's a bit odd. One would need to understand the reasons why this trip is extended. So if it is because a disease has already happened, and hence the trip is being extended, and then it'll be very, very difficult for the insurance company to come and say, okay, I'll take this certain loss. So it's very much discretionary for the insurance company. But in the bulk of cases, if it's for a genuine reason, something of this sort can be accommodated.
So let me ask you a question, a follow-up to that. What happens is we're traveling for 3 weeks.
Yes.
And so we take a back-to-back kind of a travel insurance. Now, is that a wise thing to do, or should one take a slightly longer period?
One can take a few days extra just in case some emergencies happen. You don't want a situation where you lose your baggage on the way back and it's 1 day out of your travel insurance.
Right.
And the baggage is quite expensive. Then it won't be very nice. So.
Right. We've got Mahadevan who'd like to know if he can get a medical policy for a 16-year-old child who has had leukemia at the age of 5. She's completely cured since 8 years.
I think this is a question which would require selective underwriting. I would urge Mahadevan to kind of go to somebody like us and kind of ask them for options. I think there are a few companies that may consider that. So I have on occasion seen a few companies, I don't want to specifically name them here, who are a little more relaxed on underwriting than some of the others. Well, I could name them. So I found Max Bupa a little more relaxed on the underwriting, and it varies from time to time. So I would seriously encourage him to come to someone like a Policy Bazaar or any other person who kind of deals with lots of insurance companies, who would be able to advise him on which insurance company may be able to cover this particular piece, because they'll very quickly reach out to all and find out who's willing to cover it.
Right, we've got Vikas, 42 years old, unmarried, wants your advice on health insurance, Yashish, on a plan that he could opt for with OPD benefits.
Oh, there are a lot of them, and there will be more and more of them coming in. So there's one by ICICI Lombard. There are quite a few others out there, but I would again suggest to him to kind of, so there are lots of OPD plans, but most of the OPD plans, the way they work is almost like cashback plans. So you have a cover of up to 5,000 rupees for health insurance. They would say, okay, you can increase your cover by 10,000 rupees and hence buy a 15,000 rupee policy in which you have the ability to claim 10,000 rupees back as OPD. So it's effectively a tax saving mechanism by which you can submit bills for OPD. And again, OPD is of a couple of types. So there can be day surgeries, but what the OPD I'm talking about is going and buying medicines, or going and going for the day and seeing the doctor, etc. So all that outpatient part can be covered, but it mostly works as a cashback. But yes, there are plans out there, and there'll be more because the health cover has just gone from 15,000 to 25,000, and I think that part is going to get filled up in a lot of cases by OPD.
Right. We've got Sachin, 30 years old, and is looking to buy an insurance cover for himself. He wants advice on whether he should opt for a term plan or a money-back plan.
A term plan, the answer is very straightforward. So go for a term plan. And I would certainly urge you to consider how fixed deposits would work versus a money-back plan if you're looking for a return of any sort. But if you're looking for a long-term investment, then I could suggest ULIPs or mutual funds to you. But yeah, a term plan will be far more effective than buying insurance through any other mechanism.
Thanks, Yashish. Now it's time for our quiz question that we asked. Answering that question, when was life insurance in India nationalized? Now, was it in 1956, we asked, or 1973 or 1999? The correct answer is A, which is 1956. And congratulations to Parmeshwarya. You won a gift voucher worth 1,000 rupees. And of course, this week's question is travel insurance mandatory in India? Yes or no? Now, you can send in your queries to queries@policybazaar.com. Thanks a lot once again, Yashish, for joining us on this show. But do email us at queries@policybazaar.com, and we'll see you next time with another episode of Policy Bazaar. Goodbye.